Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really fascinating case of digital forensics, one that uncovers a potential crime hiding in, well, one of the most public places you can imagine, a popular YouTube channel.
All right, so let's just jump right in with the question that's really at the heart of this whole story. Is it even possible for something as simple as a YouTube view to be used for financial crime? Well, investigators looking into a pretty prominent political commentator, they think the answer is a big yes.
So this channel, it belongs to a creator named Gustavo Macalpin. And here's the kicker. According to the forensic analysts, his videos aren't just pulling in an audience. They're allegedly part of this incredibly sophisticated scheme to, wash dirty money. We're talking about turning illicit funds into clean, totally legitimate ad revenue.
But how? How exactly does that even work? How do you take a simple click and turn it into clean cash? Let's break down the method that investigators believe is really at the center of this whole thing.
Okay, so the engine driving this whole scheme, it's something called a cell phone farm. Just picture this, rows and rows of actual smartphones, all of them programmed to automatically watch videos, like posts, and just generate engagement 24/7. To an algorithm, all that activity, it looks like it's coming from thousands of totally real people.
So here's the suspected three-step process. It's pretty straightforward when you lay it out. Step 1, you get the dirty money from some outside source. Step 2, use that money to pay these cell phone farms to just spam millions of fake views onto the YouTube videos. And then step 3, the platform, YouTube, sees all those views, thinks they're legit, and pays out clean advertising revenue to the channel owner. And just like that, the money's laundered.
So that's the theory, right? But a theory is just a theory without some hard evidence to back it up. So now, let's follow the digital breadcrumbs that the forensic analysts had to painstakingly piece together from all the channel's data.
The very first thing that just jumped out at them was the sheer scale of it all. Analysts zeroed in on 78 specific videos they flagged as high risk, and on those videos alone, they found over 5 million views that were probably artificial. 5 million.
And this number right here, wow, it just perfectly illustrates the problem. For every single subscriber, the channel had 247 views. Now, a typical healthy organic channel might have, 8 to 10 views per subscriber? This ratio is just so far off the charts that it immediately screams that the viewership isn't coming from the channel's actual fans.
So, the first big clue came when they started mapping out the daily views for every single video. If you look at that chart, you can see that most of the videos are just humming along with a normal low level of daily views. But that massive, sharp spike, that represents a handful of videos getting thousands of views every single day. That is just not a natural pattern.
All right, clue number 2, and this is where it gets even more suspicious. Using machine learning, the analysts didn't just find a few outliers, they found entire clusters of them. See how those green and blue dots are all grouped together? They're behaving in a totally different way from the rest of the channel's videos. This suggests they weren't just getting lucky and going viral, they were being systematically targeted.
And for the final piece of the data puzzle, they looked at correlations. Normally things like your subscriber count and your daily views, they should kind of grow together, right? But this chart, this matrix, it shows a really weak connection between those key metrics. For example, a video's age didn't mean it had fewer views, which completely contradicts how things normally work. All of it just pointed to one thing: artificial manipulation.
And believe me, the red flags just kept on piling up. We're talking sudden, massive view spikes. On one day, the channel rocketed up by over 186,000 views. But here's the weird part. The subscriber count stayed completely flat at 122,000. On top of that, the videos with the most views often had the least engagement, very few comments or likes. And kind of curiously, almost 90% of these manipulated videos were all about specific political topics. Okay, so the data's pointing pretty strongly toward artificial manipulation. But you have to ask, why? Why go to all this trouble? To really get the motive, we've got to follow the money, leaving the digital world and heading back into the real one.
So first up, what was the potential payout here? What's the prize? Well, analysts crunched the numbers and estimated that these inflated views could be generating as much as $750,000 in ad revenue from YouTube every single year. That is a huge incentive.
But that begs the question, right? Where's the money coming from to pay for all those cell phone farms in the first place? Well, the investigation uncovered another huge piece of the puzzle. Public records showed that Macalpin had received almost 14 million pesos in government advertising contracts through an agency.
And boom, this is where the whole theory comes full circle. Investigators believe that this money from these government contracts could be the exact illicit funds being funneled to the cell phone farms. That money pays for the fake views, which then generate clean ad revenue from YouTube, and you've successfully washed the original cash.
So, after looking at all the digital evidence and the money trail, the analysts came to their conclusions. But, and this is pretty interesting, they didn't all agree on just how certain they were.
Get this. One forensic memo laid it out in black and white, saying there was an 88% probability, that's high confidence, that the channel was actively laundering money. But a separate analyst report was a lot more cautious, putting the probability somewhere in the moderate range of 40 to 60%.
So why the big difference? Well, the second report pointed to this little detail. While a lot of the videos had super low engagement, some of the videos with huge view counts actually had pretty decent like-to-view ratios. That kind of muddied the waters. It suggested that, yeah, artificial inflation was probably happening, but there was some real organic growth happening too, which made it harder to pin down the exact scale of the whole operation. So, based on everything they found, investigators laid out a really clear path to turn their theory into a case that could actually be prosecuted. We're talking about subpoenaing Google for the IP addresses of the viewers, tracing the ad payments directly back to those government contracts, and getting Mexico's Financial Intelligence Unit involved to take formal action.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, here's a final thought for you. This case really shows that evidence of a crime might not be in a locked safe for some hidden ledger anymore. It could be right there in front of us all, buried in the view counts of a YouTube video. It really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? As more and more of our world moves online, how many other crimes are just hiding in plain sight?